Almost everything you've been taught about money comes with an expiration date, and that date is the day you retire. Think about it. Your entire working life, the advice never changes. Earn more, save more, grow more, take the risk, climb the ladder, chase the higher number. And that advice is correct right up until the paychecks stop. Because the moment you retire, the game quietly switches to a completely different game with completely different rules. And nobody hands you the new rulebook. Nobody. You just get a cake and a firm handshake, and you're on your own. So most people do the only thing they know how to do. They keep playing the old game in the new season, and then they wonder why they feel anxious and tight and stressed while sitting on a pile of money that should, by every reasonable measure, make them feel completely safe. The retirees who are genuinely thriving, and I don't mean the richest ones, I mean the calmest ones, the folks who sleep like babies and pick up the check without flinching. They figured out the new rules. And it wasn't through some secret account or a magic stock. It was a handful of mindset shifts, the quiet operating system running underneath every single money decision they make. So today, I'm handing you 7 of them so that you can adopt them the easy way, not the expensive way. All right, let's get into it. Mindset number 1, money is a tool, not a scorecard. Most people, whether they'd admit it or not, treat money like a scorecard. The number in the account is a running tally of how well you're doing at life. Number goes up, you feel like a winner. Number goes down, you feel like you're failing. Your self-esteem is basically pinned to a chart, bouncing around like a mood ring you can't take off. And this feels harmless while you're working because the number mostly goes up. But in retirement, the whole thing flips. In retirement, the number is supposed to go down. You spend 40 years filling the bucket precisely so you can finally drink from it. But if money's a scorecard to you, every withdrawal feels like losing points. I've met retirees with millions who are miserable, flinching every time they spend, because in their head, the scoreboard is ticking backwards, and it feels like defeat. Wise retirees don't play that game. To them, money's a tool, a hammer, and you don't measure a hammer by how shiny it is or how many hammers your neighbor owns. You measure it by whether it builds the thing you actually want. A great vacation, time with the grandkids, fixing the roof before it becomes a situation. The money is only good for what it does. The second you make that flip, tool, not scorecard, money stops being a source of anxiety and starts being a source of options. You stop asking, am I winning? And start asking, what do I want to build? Which is a much better question and also one you can actually answer. A hammer sitting in a drawer, unused, admired, never swung, that's not wealth. That's just a heavy, disappointed hammer. Mindset number 2, every dollar has a purpose. Here's a strange thing about the retirees who sleep well at night. They don't necessarily have more money. They have more organized money. There's this concept where every single dollar you have is given a job before it's allowed to just sit around. This one is for groceries. This one is for the trip in the fall. This one is for the, oh no, the water heater exploded fund. These dollars over here, these don't get touched for 10 years. They're for the long haul. Every dollar shows up to work with a name tag and an assignment. Compare that to how most people operate, which is what I lovingly call the big blurry pile method. You've got one big blurry pile of money and you sort of hope it's enough. You spend out of the pile, you save into the pile, and at no point do you actually know if any given expense is fine or a catastrophe. It's all vibes, and a pile of money you don't understand is stressful, even when it's a big pile, especially when it's a big pile. Wise retirees give every dollar a purpose because it does 2 things. 1, it kills anxiety. You're not scared of the water heater when there's already a jar labeled water heater. And 2, it gives you permission to spend. This is huge. When the vacation money is clearly the vacation money, you can actually go on vacation without guilt because you're not raiding some vague emergency you can't picture. The money was always for this. My uncle does this, and he's the calmest spender I've ever met. He'll drop real money on a nice dinner without blinking because that dollar's job was literally have a nice dinner. Meanwhile, it took him a full year to replace a broken lamp because no dollar had been assigned to lamp. The man has priorities, weird ones, but they're clear. Blurry money is scary. Assigned money is calm. Give every dollar a job. Mindset number 3, small habits shape big financial decisions. We love to believe our financial life is decided by a few enormous dramatic moments, the big investment, the perfect market timing, the one heroic choice that sets us up forever. It's almost never that. It's the small stuff, repeated for a really long time. Wise retirees understand this in their bones because they lived the timeline. They watched a boring little automatic transfer of a modest amount every month quietly quietly turn into a genuinely large sum over 30 years, with them barely noticing it happen. They didn't get there with one brilliant move. They got there with 1,000 unremarkable ones. The magic wasn't intensity, it was consistency, the least exciting word in personal finance and, annoyingly, the most powerful. And it runs the other direction, too. The small bad habits compound just as ruthlessly. The subscriptions you forgot you have, the streaming service, the app, the gym you visited in spirit only. Individually, nothing, $12, $15. But those little leaks running quietly in the background for years add up to a genuinely startling number. The mindset shift here is that wise retirees stopped waiting for the big, heroic financial moment and started respecting the tiny ones. They automated the good habits so they didn't have to rely on willpower, because willpower is a liar and it clocks out at 5 p.m. And they periodically hunted down the small bad habits and stopped them. Your future is not built by the dramatic decision you make once. It's built by the small thing you do every Friday without thinking about it, which is either great news or terrible news, depending entirely on what your Friday habit is. Mindset number 4. Peace of mind is a real return. All right, I need you to understand this one because it goes against everything the finance world screams at you. The entire industry is obsessed with one number: the return, the yield, the growth rate. How hard is your money working? How much did it beat the market? Squeeze every last percentage point out of every dollar. And look, returns matter. I'm not going to pretend they don't. But wise retirees discovered something the spreadsheets don't have a column for. Peace of mind is also a return. And for a lot of them, it's the one that actually matters most. Here's what I mean. Imagine two retirees. One is squeezed into the most aggressive, highest growth setup possible, and technically he's earning a little more, but he checks his accounts 4 times a day, his stomach drops every time the market dips, and he hasn't slept through the night since the last downturn. The other dialed things back a notch, earns slightly less on paper, and sleeps like a golden retriever in a sunbeam, never thinks about it, enjoys his life. Who's actually wealthier? Because I promise you the second guy is having a dramatically better retirement, and the difference between their returns wouldn't buy the first guy a decent night's sleep. Wise retirees learn to pay for peace of mind on purpose. They'll accept a slightly lower return in exchange for not lying awake at 3 a.m. doing math at the ceiling. They understand that the point of the money was never the money, it was the life, and a life spent anxious about a number is a bad trade no matter how good the number is. You cannot spend a return in the hospital getting treated for stress. Peace of mind pays out every single day, tax-free, and it's the one dividend you can actually feel. Don't leave it off your balance sheet.
Mindset 5. Wealth protection now beats wealth growth. For your entire working life, the game is growth. Grow the money, grow the accounts, grow, grow, grow. Take the risk, ride the swings. You've got decades to recover. And that's correct. While you're young and earning, growth is the whole point. But wise retirees figured out that at some point the game silently changes, and most people never get the memo. Because in retirement, the goal is no longer to get rich. You already did the hard part. The goal now is to not become poor. Protection beats growth. Let me put it in terms that'll stick. When you're building wealth, you're climbing a mountain, and a stumble just costs you a little progress you'll make back next week. But once you retire, you're not climbing anymore. You're carrying a full bucket of water back down the mountain. And when you're carrying the full bucket, the whole objective changes. You're not trying to gain more water. You're trying to not spill the water you spent 30 years collecting. One bad slip near the bottom can cost you what took decades to fill. This is why the smartest retirees I know actually get more conservative right when everyone assumes they should be chasing bigger returns. They're not being timid, they're being sharp. A young person who loses a chunk has years of paychecks to refill the bucket. A retiree who loses a chunk has no more paychecks. The stakes aren't symmetrical anymore. A loss that's a bruise at 35 can be a broken leg at 70. The mindset flip is this. Stop asking how much more can I make and start asking how much can I afford to lose and how do I make sure I don't. It feels backwards because your whole life trained you for offense. You win it by protecting the lead you already earned. Mindset 6. Flexibility is a financial strength. We tend to think of financial strength as rigidity, a locked-in plan, a fortress, everything nailed down, nothing can move. Strong equals inflexible, right? Wise retirees know the opposite is true. In real life, the plan that bends is stronger than the plan that's rigid because rigid plans shatter the second reality does something unexpected, and reality is constantly doing something unexpected. It's kind of its whole personality. Think about it like a tree in a storm. The stiff, rigid oak that refuses to move, that's the one that snaps. The one that bends with the wind is the one still standing in the morning. Financial flexibility is the same idea. The retiree who can adjust, spend a little less in a down year, a little more in a good one, delay the big purchase when things are rocky, take advantage when they're not, that retiree can survive almost anything the world throws at them. Here's a concrete version. The market has a rough stretch. The rigid retiree keeps spending exactly the same on schedule, no matter what, because the plan is the plan, and they dig a hole they can't climb out of. The flexible retiree goes, you know what? We'll skip the big trip this year and take the local one, and we'll go big next year when things bounce back. Same money, wildly different outcome. One of them cracked. The other one just swayed a little and kept going. And flexibility isn't only about surviving the bad times, it's about pouncing on the good ones. The flexible person has options. Options to help family when help is needed. Options to jump on a deal. Options to just change their whole mind because they feel like it, which honestly should be one of the primary joys of being retired. Rigid feels safe. It isn't. The ability to adapt is the real strength, because you don't actually know what's coming, and a plan built to bend is a plan built to last.
Mindset 7. Enough is powerful. Which brings us to the most powerful idea on this entire list, and it's one word: enough. Here's a question that stumps almost everybody. Ask someone how much money would be enough for them and watch them malfunction. They can't answer. They just wave vaguely at the sky and go, more. And that right there is the trap that keeps people anxious even when they're objectively rich. Because more is not a number. More is a treadmill with no off switch. You make 40 grand and dream of 80. You hit 80 and now you need 150. There is no salary on earth that satisfies a brain that has decided the answer is simply more. You just run faster on the same treadmill forever, sweating, going nowhere. The single most powerful thing wise retirees ever did was define enough. They sat down and figured out what their life actually costs and what they truly want it to look like, and they landed on a number. And the instant they knew that number and knew they had it, everything got quiet. The comparison stopped. The anxiety stopped. The neighbor's new truck stopped mattering because they weren't chasing more anymore. They'd already arrived. Because that's the secret nobody tells you. Enough isn't a limitation, it's a finish line. And you cannot win a race that has no finish line. You can only run until you collapse. Defining enough is how you actually get to cross it. It's how you get to stop running and start living, which was the entire point of the money in the first place. The happiest retirees I've ever met all have this in common. They know exactly what enough is for them, so they've stopped trying to score higher. They crossed their line years ago, and now they just get to enjoy the walk. Here's what I want you to sit with, though. The retirees who are thriving didn't develop this thinking because they got comfortable. A lot of them got comfortable because they thought this way first. The mindset came before the money. That's the part almost everybody gets backwards. So pick one, just one. Remember what I said at the top. Nobody hands you the new rule book when you retire. Well, consider this it. These are the rules that most people don't figure out until they've already learned them the expensive way. The ones who thrive aren't luckier or richer. They just started playing the right game a little sooner. So go be one of them. If this one landed for you, remember to like and drop a comment telling me which of the 7 you're starting with. I actually read them. I'm nosy like that. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you in the next one.